Hi, my name is Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. Welcome back! I hope you're all very safe and well. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Emma. I do 2 new videos every single week about horror, giving you horror recommendations and reviews, all that good stuff. If you want to subscribe, please do so. If you have not seen a video like this before from me, I'll leave the last 2 linked down below. You guys really seem to like these and find them really helpful, so I thought today, let's do another. If you want to be part of one of these videos in the future, please make sure you're following me on Instagram, which is just Spookyastronauts. Before I do one of these videos, I put something up on my stories asking for requests, so keep an eye out for those and possibly you can be in the next one. But let's jump right in. The first question I'm going to tackle today is from Max, and they ask if I have a good and scary possession film that is also underrated. And I actually have the perfect one for you. It's called Demon. Demon is a 2015 Polish drama fantasy horror about a man possessed by a spirit on his own wedding day. It's a loose retelling of the Jewish legend of the Dybbuk, and the film has an overwhelming feeling of dread that has stuck with me throughout the years. There's also a really tragic backstory to this movie. The director, when he was promoting it, he passed away. I won't get into the details. The film is amazing and highly underrated. I definitely recommend it. Sabrina asked for films like Would You Rather, and for me, this reminds me of kind of like puzzle horror and films like Saw, but 2 of my favorites include Cube, a mystery sci-fi from 1997 where 6 strangers are put inside a maze and have to work together to survive. And also, I would love to recommend 13 Sins, which is a remake of a Thai film called 13 Beloved. Both are about a desperate man who completes a number of increasingly dangerous tasks to receive money. Those are 2 I recommend if you haven't seen them, but of course there's also Circle, The Platform, and Escape Room if you want to go down that route. I know not a lot of people liked Escape Room, but I didn't really mind it, to be honest. This next question is for some dark fairy tales, and I tell you what, this I got. The first one is The Company of Wolves, which is a UK 80s classic. It's a loose retelling of Red Riding Hood. The second film I want to recommend is The Lure from 2015, which is the second Polish film I've mentioned in this video, which is awesome. This tells the story of a mermaid who falls in love with a human. The new Gretel and Hansel film is also well worth a watch if you haven't had a chance yet. It follows the story through Gretel's eyes and has some amazing visuals. The mushroom scene is my favorite. And then of course there's the South Korean Hansel and Gretel, which kind of switches up the story, but it's got that dark fairy tale feel. The film is about a man who becomes lost in the woods and is led to a house he cannot escape from. Huge fan of the South Korean Hansel and Gretel, highly recommend. My next question was from everyone's favorite gorehound, who asked me about female villains in horror movies, and I think that there's a lot of female villains. I actually think there is as many female villains as there are male villains. When you think about it, there is a lot, and especially because a lot of them are used as the twist. I don't want to say a very obvious film, but I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing. It's because usually females are seen as the least suspected, and because in real life, male killers are more prominent, so it's very interesting. But I do feel like there are a lot of female villains in horror movies, but here are 2 that I picked that I feel like are less discussed. The first one is Mother. Mother is from Mother's Day. I'm talking about the original in this video, which is from 1980. She's probably one of the creepiest mothers in all of horror, and that's beating out Margaret White, which is very creepy. In this film, she watches on as her sons terrorize 3 women to impress her. Also, I wanted to mention Robin McLevy, who plays the delusional Lola in the Australian horror thriller The Loved Ones. The film is about a girl out for revenge on the prom date that turned her down. So those are 2 that are less spoken about, but I do want to talk about the classic, the greatest female horror villain of all time. It's Annie from Stephen King's Misery. In Rob Reiner's adaptation, Annie is played by Kathy Bates, in which she won an Oscar for the role. Misery is about a famous author who is rescued from a car accident by his biggest fan, who then chooses to hold him hostage. I'm sorry, I had to include her in this question, even though it's very obvious. She's just so iconic. Dream It, Do It asked for some good found footage. I wanted to mention ones that are less spoken about because of course there's the obvious one ones, but these are the ones that I feel like are underrated and not a lot of people hype up. The first one is Afflicted. I never hear people talking about Afflicted. The 2013 horror mystery film is directed by Derek Lee and Cliff Prowse. The film is about two friends that go on a holiday, but one experiences a strange affliction. What they start off filming as a travel video ends up as the only evidence of the horror that unfolds. A film you can't go past if you're looking for a good found footage horror movie is Troll Hunter. Touching on Scandinavian folklore, this Norwegian horror fantasy is about a group of students that find a strange man who claims to hunt trolls. He agrees to let them come along as they follow the rules. The last one I wanted to mention is Digging Up the Marrow. This one starts off more as a documentary type found footage exploring monster art. But it quickly takes a turn when the filmmakers come into contact with a man who claims to have evidence that real monsters exist. Will asks for A24 films that are not A24 films. I do actually know what you mean, and I'm sure a lot of people out there who are watching this know what that means. I've watched all of the horror A24 films. I've actually ranked them all. If you guys want to check that out, I'll link it above. But I do have some that feel like A24 films, that they would be produced by them, that are more kind of thriller, and they are really good. So I'm really excited to recommend these to you. The first one is Queen of Earth, and this stars Elizabeth Moss. Queen of Earth is about a friendship that is tested when roles are reversed. It's like slipping slowly into insanity, with some of those art house touches we associate A24 with. Swallow is a 2019 horror drama. It's a story about a housewife that develops an obsession for swallowing inedible objects. Surprisingly, this film is less about the gore and more about the insight into the psychological effects of toxic relationships. The Invitation is a film that's been around for a couple of years. It's a slow and unnerving burn that is well crafted and has that indie feel. The film is about a man who attends a dinner party at his ex-wife's house only to pick up on clues that something more sinister may be on the cards. My friend Ben Grimm asked about scary apartment horror, and I'm so glad you asked this question. The first thing that comes to mind is the criminally underrated Spanish film Sleep Tight. Sleep Tight is a 2011 thriller horror film about an apartment concierge that becomes overly involved in the lives of people in the apartment. It's a sinister story about trust, which makes you question who has the spare keys to your apartment. 1BR is a newly released horror, available on VOD on Amazon Prime. The film follows Sarah, who is starting a new life in LA and moves into an apartment complex where she becomes threatened by an anonymous neighbor. I've also got to mention the classic apartment horror Rosemary's Baby. This film is well regarded for many reasons, but one of the most terrifying things about it was the access to her apartment. Even at home, she was unsafe, and perhaps even more so. The film is about a couple that move into an apartment and try for a baby, but her strange neighbors grow an interest in Rosemary, and soon she finds herself questioning her surroundings. The Desired Effect asked me about actors in horror movies before they were famous, and this really reminded me of Malevolent, which I only saw, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, but just before I found out who Florence Pugh was, obviously, and I didn't even realize it was her looking back, which is so crazy. The film is about a group of scam artists that attempt to set up a job at a haunted estate, but this quickly backfires. To be honest, I wouldn't really recommend that film. I don't think it's that great, but I thought it was really interesting that I didn't even recognize her. But some interesting appearances include Clint Eastwood in The Revenge of the Creature. He's actually uncredited, which is crazy. This film is a sequel to The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and in this one, men capture the creature to make him part of an attraction. And then there's Children of the Corn. I have such a soft spot for this franchise, and it has some really interesting first appearances. Charlize Theron is in Children of the Corn 3, Urban Harvest. It was her first role in a film. Again, uncredited. And Eva Mendes is in number 5, Fields of Terror. If you don't know about Children of the Corn, it's a franchise that follows a cult of children who follow an entity called He Who Walks Behind the Rose. This next question is for films that are similar to Personal Shopper, and I don't really know that many other films that are exactly the same as this, but one that's similar is Norwegian film THELMA. This is a film about a girl who tries to deny her sexuality, which leads to suppressed psychokinetic powers. The film isn't as slow as Personal Shopper, but it's definitely got the same look with the steady, ominous vibe. And the last question for today's video is similar films to Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I had to pick films that are goofy, fun, silly, and vibrant. Which for me is Creepshow, which is an anthology horror movie playing homage to the EC horror comics. They really play into the fact it's a comic book and you see all of the stories come to life. Lots of practical effects and fun acting. And I also have to mention Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. This is an adventure comedy from the late 70s. The film is about a group of scientists that try and save the world from killer tomatoes. Now I know what you're typing. I say tomato, not tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. It's the way we say it down under. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And don't forget to follow me over on Instagram if you want to be part of the next one. And make sure to subscribe because I do 2 videos every single week. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay spooky. Bye.